let's talk a little Brentford hosting Leeds.
Mm.
Now, Leeds coming off a loss recently, and we want to see how they're going to bounce back with regard to that. Brentford are winless in their last 3 since beating Man United 4-0. They have drawn back-to-back matches, 1-1. They've conceded first in both of those games. Leeds coming off a 1-1 draw against Everton. Prior to that, they had lost. So they had a midweek game against Everton and did well to get back into that game. Brendan Aaronson, a little quiet in the middle, but the second half, I feel like every time in the second half, Jesse and his coaching staff, Jesse Marsh, that is, have made some adjustments that have made a difference. But what I thought the Everton game in particular, Heath, was that Everton decided we're going to sit back. We're going to let them try they just don't trust that Leeds is good enough to beat them in when they sit in a low block. And I think that's something that Jesse and they have to figure out before the game kick. Not that they're not trying. Of course they're trying, but I think that's where they struggle. And now with Bamford still not 100% healthy as their striker, Rodrigo maybe dislocated his shoulder. He's going to be out. He had a hot start. Joe Gelhardt, he's got some qualities, but he's probably not the guy that's going to help you break down a low block. He runs really hard. They just let Dan James go on loan in the transfer window. It's interesting times. Now, it's a Leeds podcast, but Luis Sinisterra, I think, is a good signing. This is going to be an interesting one. Yeah, Brendan Aaronson and Tyler Adams should get the start, and they're continuing to prove that they deserve to be playing in the Premier League.
Well, this is what's interesting for the development of Brendan Aaronson is we've seen flashes of him in the 10 when things are right. But if you looked in that first half of the game, he was always like either pressing back too far and the game goes past him the other way, or he presses too high, the game goes the other way, and he kind of just seems kind of lost at times in terms of where can I make impact, because he's always up for it and he's always got the energy to do it. But sometimes he's lost in that positioning. With Sinisterra there, it seems like Brendan Aaronson is going to have to be that 10 for a while. Yes, you have Rodrigo and Bamford, and you could maybe change the way in which you play over time. But if he wants to get that start, Sinisterra is a massive signing. And so for Brendan Aaronson, that's probably, Jack Harrison's well-established on the left side there. Brendan Aaronson's generally better on the right or in the middle. So he's going to have to embrace that role of like consistency at the 10 spot. And be impactful and almost learn that position in a way that he hasn't before. He stepped into that. Yes, he did that at the Philadelphia Union at times.
And for Salzburg as well.
Yeah, and Salzburg as well. But he needs to find a way to be more consistent and impactful with the tools that he has, right? He's not going to ever be an out-and-out number 10, and those don't barely even exist anymore. We know he's going to put in the shift, but where can you now be more impactful in these spots when things aren't going well or the rhythm of your team isn't there, so that he can lock himself down as a sure starter for Leeds? Because there is a potential that he could find himself in a rotation if he I'm being extreme in this context, but it seems like they're trying to give him the 10 spot, and he could do something with that if he wants to.
Well, what's interesting is that is a possible solution for the US if we wanted to try to get everybody on the field at the same time. Now, obviously, somebody in midfield would have to be sacrificed, McKinney or Musa in this particular instance, because Adams isn't going anywhere. But at least it's an option. And for him to have gotten some valuable minutes against some big clubs or even just in the Premier League in general with how fast it is, I think what I really appreciated about him from the first half to the second half against Everton is where he found his pockets of space, to your point, how he started to settle into the game a little bit, which ultimately led to his assist when he gave a good ball out wide to, had a little half turn, attacked the space, played it out wide to Sinisterra, who did the rest. But those little pockets of space and being able to, he's so good at that, but can they find him a little bit more consistently? And that's not always on Aaronson. That's also on his teammates to make sure they're looking for him in those pockets. So there's a couple things here, but this is going to be a good game. Brentford, obviously high energy, especially playing at home. Very good. And it'll be another good test for Jesse Marsh and Tyler Adams and Brendan Aaronson. All right, let's move on now to, Crystal Palace, because they are taking on Newcastle at home. Away at St. James's Park. What's interesting for me, Heath, with regard to this game in particular, is that Crystal Palace are now starting to pile up games. We saw it with Newcastle against Liverpool. They switched their 2 center backs out, complete switch. And they took out Sven Botman, their big signing, and Fabian Schär to bring on Dan Burn and Lascelles. And it almost worked out. They probably should have got a little bit more out of that Liverpool game. Now they're going to flip-flop. I almost feel like I hope Crystal Palace considers to do the same under Patrick Vieira. It's because Crystal Palace hasn't necessarily lit it up defensively. They're getting a little bit stronger as the season continues to progress. But this is a good game, I think, to potentially give Chris Richards some minutes and maybe get the start. I mean, because you're going to have this fixture pileup. and you're gonna figure at some point you got to rest some of your guys. And why not this one away to Newcastle? What are your thoughts on Chris Richards? Because we need this guy to get minutes for us too, and that's me being super biased.
Yeah, Chris Richards such a good player, but he's in a tough situation, right? We saw like Gay and Anderson last year be the main starters in a season that was what I think they had a ton of draws, but a few of those swings away from being in the kind of top 6 of the table in terms of the way that they play, the emphasis of the game, the style of play. I believe I don't know if it's Gay or Anderson has already scored once this year. The hard part that I worry about is that rotational thing, right? It's fine if he's a squad player. We're not going to be able to change a whole lot, right? He's going to continue to compete and try to get more minutes on the team. I think he's been brought in to raise the level of the starters around him or compete for a starting spot. But I don't, you know what it's like, Jimmy, if you don't get a ton of minutes and you get thrown into the games that are always the hard games, right? The rotational games. You're playing away at Newcastle, not an easy place to play. You'll take them anytime you can get them. But can he get it? Can he actually get some more significant minutes when the team is maybe playing at home as well? Is what I'd like to see, where he can show a little bit more of his style of play or fitting in with the team, where he can show his strengths a little bit longer. But yeah, if he can get 90, if we can get more significant time against Newcastle, I would love to see it. I don't know if that's going to be the case because they seem to be pretty content.
I know, but I'm just saying,
like you said, they do need to rotate over time.
Other clubs are already doing it. They're already starting to rotate their squads a little bit because they know there's going to be some fixture congestion moving forward because of the condensed season prior to the World Cup. So I hope that Chris Richards gets a run out at some point. That's not just a League Cup game, those are important too. I'll take any minutes we can get for any of our players, but I'd like to see him against a good Newcastle team with Alexander Isak. Okay, let's keep this moving because we can talk about all these games all the time. One more game in the Premier League. Tottenham is hosting Fulham. Fulham have done pretty well to put themselves in a great spot. They have 8 points from 15 available. Mitrovic already has 5 goals up top. Absolutely crushing it. Tim Ream has been excellent so far this season, the captain of the squad for Marco Silva. Antonee Robinson, I'm just going to say it right now, this is the biggest game for him because with Kursawa coming in from PSG, who plays the same exact position and has a little bit more experience than Antonee, I could see Marco Silva, especially if Antonee doesn't play well in this game, it could be a really interesting one. Another thing that we need to talk about is what if Tim Ream does well against Harry Kane? Because we obviously play England in the World Cup. Would that be something that would change your mind, Heath? That if he plays well against Harry Kane, you're bringing him in?
No, I mean, it would.
He's done. You think Ream's out? Ream's not even getting called in.
It would change my mind, but I just think that, again, going back to the fact that Fulham were the best team in the championship last year, they come into the league this year. Yes, you're playing against Harry Kane instead of Josh Sargent, right? Week in and week out. That's not a shot at Josh Sargent. It's just a different level of shot at Josh Sargent. It's not a shot. I mean, Jimmy,
you can't walk it back.
Somebody could use the context.
Don't let
him
walk it back. Hit up Heath on Twitter and give him a hard time about
you could say, somebody's saying you're playing in La Liga, you're playing against Marcelo, not against Heath Pierce. That's something I wouldn't be offended by that. That's Marcelo, But
thank you for that clarification.
You are playing against a World Cup opponent. You're playing against a world-class player in Harry Kane, but I still think that Greg has planted his flag as we are a system-based national team. People need to fit within this.
Sure.
Because again, you would look at it over time, and yes, Tim Ream has been called in, but Tim Ream has all the tools. John Anthony Brooks has all the tools to be a national team player based on the system. But I worry about shut down Harry Kane. Great. Maybe that's the way we play. Maybe we sit deeper. Maybe we are defending.
I'm just saying that if I'm Tim Ream, I'm thinking, dude, if I can just lock it down here with Harry Kane, this is my calling card now to say, hey, Greg, I have a reason to text Greg and be like, hey, you see all Harry Kane this past weekend? Yeah, he's in my back pocket. If you want to talk to him, we can get on the phone and make it. I mean, that's what else can he do?
Is he a bubble player? Is he a bubble player and making the squad, or is he on the outside looking in?
I don't feel like the center backs, given current club form, I feel like it's all kind of wide open at this point.
So everybody's got a shot.
I think at this point, that's where I'm leaning, which is kind of scary to say out loud.
It is scary to say out loud, but it's not. I don't think it's wrong. That's for sure. Because you might default to experience.
It's a big game for Ream and Antonee, by the way, because Antonee could be on the precipice of losing his starting job, and that opens up a conversation.
Pissed if somebody brought somebody in, Jimmy, right at the close of a transfer window into my spot. I'd be pissed.
course. Well, now what are you going to do about it, right? That's up to him now. And this is his game to make that happen because they're not going to play Kursawa in this first one. They're probably going to wait a week, maybe another one, and then we'll see what happens. So it's up to Antonee to make sure, okay, Kursawa's coming in. I'll let him take Tim Ream's spot because he can also play left center back. I'm going to own my spot. All right, one other game in this will jump into Sunday. We're going to rip through these games, but there is rumors that Aaron Ramsdale, goalkeeper for Arsenal, might not be playing. He did train with the first team, but they're still assessing whether he's good enough to go. He trained with them today, but it could be Matt Turner time, which is why I wore this Arsenal warm-up, baby. Let's go, because I'm trying to get positive vibes out there. It'd be awesome to see Matt Turner playing at Old Trafford against Manchester United this weekend.
Oh, boy.
How about that for your first
Man
ever
United,
start?
they can only score 1 goal a game, but they're winning right now. So
they've got, yeah, it's interesting times to be a Man United fan.
Oh, Lord have mercy on American
That's gonna be a good game. I'm really looking
Matt Turner
forward to that one.
against Manchester United and doesn't have the game of his life. You know, they will
they'll
light our nation up.
If Matt Turner plays and has a great game, he's our number one, locked
Yeah.
in and dusted.